Pastor Jimmy Evans. Pastor, thanks so much for being here. We got a lot to cover here, and we're starting on this interesting topic here of the quantum apocalypse that you guys were writing about on your website at endtimes.com. And, you know, this is based off of a headline here that we've been seeing in recent days, Pastor, that talks about this quantum computing. So tell me about why this one caught your radar. You guys are always looking at things through the prophetic lens, the end times, kind of trying to decipher what we're seeing here in the news of the day. So tell me why this one caught your eye.
Well, you know, AI was introduced commercially in 2023. And when that was released, I said at that time that it's announcing the arrival of the Antichrist. And the reason I said that is because AI is superhuman. It is supernatural. It thinks 100,000 times faster than people think, and it's getting faster. They're continually refining and accelerating AI. And on top of that, now you have quantum computing. And quantum computing is even faster. It's just this supernatural type of speed that they're computing with. And so this article that we posted is called The Coming Quantum Apocalypse. And so this is a very practical thing that everybody can understand, because we all have apps, we all have storage or some type of sensitive information. And what we hear is it's encrypted, you know. And so like WhatsApp, it's encrypted. And they say that all your conversations, all your texts are encrypted, which means they're secure. Well, what this article is saying, and this comes out of Wired magazine, they're talking about Q-Day. Q-Day is, according to them, the day someone builds a quantum computer that can crack the most widely used forms of encryption. So now we see our forms of encryption. This is just so, you know, phenomenal and so secure that all your information is secure. Not really. Because what they're saying here is there's a 1 in 3 chance before 2035 that someone's going to develop a quantum computing method that'll crack all the encryption. In other words, everything that has been private, let's talk about the nuclear codes of the United States and other countries, your personal information, your medical information, your credit card information, your financial information, everything that you thought, your conversations, everything you thought was secure is no longer secure. And so this, again, from Wired magazine, it says these math problems have kept humanity's intimate data safe for decades, but on Q-Day, everything could become vulnerable for everyone. Emails, text messages, anonymous posts, location histories, Bitcoin wallets, police reports, hospital records, power stations, the entire global financial system. And so again, when you look at the Antichrist system, the Antichrist is going to control the world. He's going to have this ability to control all financial records, but could it be that he also knows everything? See, with AI, they can take vast amounts of data, trillions of points of data in the world, and they can sort through them, know them, control everything and everyone. And so this is chilling. And what this means is, for example, China's been stealing state secrets from the United States for decades. Well, what they're saying in this article is this could already have happened. It's not just that we're looking at the day that someone cracks the code and all of this information that we thought was encrypted and safe. What they're saying is here, if China has already cracked this code, they're not going to tell us they cracked the code. What they're going to do is just start stealing secrets and manipulating data and possibly interfering with the infrastructure of the United States, the infrastructure of the military. They're going to use it for nefarious purposes, and we know that. But the main point of this article, Dan, is two things. One is this is chilling, is the day that Q-Day happens is going to be a bad day in human history, because all this data is going to be out there. And what we thought was safe is no longer safe. It's especially dangerous from a military perspective. But the second thing that we're saying, we've been saying, is Daniel chapter 12 is the last chapter in the book of Daniel. And Daniel is a very prophetic book, an end-time prophetic book. And the angel is talking to Daniel in Daniel 12 and says, and Daniel, seal this book up. seal these prophecies up until the time of the end. And you'll know the time of the end has come because people will go to and fro and knowledge will increase. So the angel saying to Daniel, Daniel, this book won't be understood until the end comes, and then it will be unsealed. And when the end comes, there's going to be an increase in knowledge. Well, we're seeing a tsunami of knowledge unleashed on the world right now. And the implications of this are vast, 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 vast. This Jeffrey Hinton, who was given a Nobel Prize for AI, he refused it. He's been working on AI since the 1980s. And he received the Nobel Prize last year, and he said, I don't want it. He said, I regret my work in AI. He said, it's an existential threat to humanity. Well, this is another reason why, is because through quantum computing and AI, they're going to have the capacity to break these codes, to take what we thought was encrypted and we thought was safe, and in one day, someday, Q day, it's all going to change. So that's a pretty chilling thing to think about.
Yeah, and let's just talk about AI for a minute here. I mean, it is interesting because obviously we know God is sovereign over all things. Like these things are not a surprise to him, right? Sure. But it is interesting to look at. We just watched my daughter, it's actually her birthday today, and she's no longer a teenager. She's 20, but two of my other kids are teenagers, and we've watched Social Dilemma with them. I don't know if you've seen that, but it shows the algorithm and just how smart it is and how much it's just tempting us all the time on social media, and just how horrible social media has been, the detrimental effects it has on us. And so then you look at AI and it's taking, so a couple things. One, you look at social media and what that's done to us kind of as humans over the last 15, 20 years. The pitch was that we'd be more connected, right? The pitch was we'd be more unified with one another, but we get all this information, like you're saying, but it's at the expense of staring at our phones and not talking to one another, and or talking a lot less interperson to interperson, face to face. And so you have that, and then now you have AI coming, and this is to me like another age of the internet. Like, we didn't know how the internet exactly was going to change our lives when it happened around the late 90s, early 2000s, and it really came onto the scene. And I think it's the same thing with AI. Like, we just don't know. I mean, it's so powerful, and we just don't know exactly the ramifications it's going to have. But you just can't help but imagine the possibilities. And I'm a believer that, yeah, there's been some good on social media, but I'm actually kind of in the camp of, if I had to pick whether it's been more negative or positive, I'd probably say negative, just because of the way what it's done to how we interact. So I don't know. I'm just thinking ahead on AI. I know you touched on it, but what are your thoughts on, just as Christians, what does that mean for us as a culture and as humans and as believers as we try to navigate AI?
Well, I think AI is neutral. Technology is neutral. The problem is when we try to allow AI to take the place of our own brain, our own reasoning. See, one of the things that's happening right now is they want to put chips. I just had Billy Crone on my podcast yesterday. He was talking about they want to take the chip, the Neuralink that Elon Musk is developing, and chip our brains and connect our brains with the cloud. And what they're saying is we can learn exponentially faster if we link our brain up with the clouds. Well, God made us perfectly just the way he wants us to be. And when we begin to try to remember in Genesis 6, when God flooded the earth, there was a hybrid race on the earth. Mm-hmm. And the Nephilim, this was Satan's attempt to basically improve on what God had done. Well, there's a massive push right now for transhumanism. And they want to interface. Well, this has been happening in the military for over a decade, is they're trying to build transhuman soldiers. And what that means is interface our brain with the cloud, so that literally, think about this, think about your brain is interfaced with AI, and you literally become omniscient, basically. In Genesis 11, when they built the Tower of Babel and God showed up, he said, now that they have become one, nothing that they propose to do will be impossible for them. So he confused their languages. Then AI has erased that. It knows all languages. And so it's once again unifying humanity. And God says, because these people have become one, nothing they propose will be impossible to them. We have to understand we're created in the image of God. Is we're not just creatures or animals, and we did not evolve. We were created in the image of God. We have unbelievable capacity as humans. And God said back in Genesis 11, if I don't split these people up, nothing that they propose to do will be impossible. Now with AI, you think the internet has changed humanity. AI is dramatically changing humanity. Let me say one other thing, because I saw this. This was a YouTube post from a AI expert. They're talking about distillation that will happen in 2026. In distillation, the models that AI is built on started from scratch. And they've been building these models that trying to train AI and teach AI. Okay, so now you have DeepSeek, you have OpenAI, you have all these different AI companies out there, and they're all refining this data, and AI is becoming smarter and smarter and more evolved and more evolved. Well, distillation means this. In 2026, they're going to take the fastest computer, the most advanced artificial intelligence model, and they're going to use that and go back and retrain all AI, which means they have a restart. But the new restart, they have distilled AI to where now you have a new starting point that is dramatically past the starting point, like in 2023 as an example. This is getting smarter and smarter and smarter. Now, scientists, there was a Google engineer, this was about 3 years ago, and he came out, you may remember this, that he said, AI is sentient, it's self-aware, and they fired him. And scientists, AI engineers and scientists right now are saying that it's sentient, is thinking on its own, and AI is now writing its own codes. AI is learning languages it wasn't trained to learn. This is not the dog that sits in the corner until you say, "Come here, Barney." This is now a self-aware entity that we created, and it is the most dangerous invention in the history of mankind. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I kind of shirked at the whole when Alexa came. I have not gotten one of these Alexa things where I talk to Alexa. I feel like there's Pastor, maybe I'm alone on this, but I feel like there's something wrong with conversing like kind of naturally with a computer. It just feels really weird. Like, hey Alexa, like, can you just get that for me? Like, no, it's a computer. Like, I'm not going to talk to it. Like, I like refuse to do it. And maybe this is just me becoming old and stodgy, but I refuse to tell something, a computer, and talk to it like it's real. It's just all very odd to me. And that is interesting stuff. But I want to, we've got a time limit here. So I want to get on to our next topic here. And this one has to do with the Pope prophecies. Can you tell me about this? We were messaging earlier today about, things we were going to look at. And one of them that was on your radar was something called the Pope prophecies. So tell me, before we get into like the latest on that and what's kind of on your radar, tell me about these Pope prophecies and what they are, because I wasn't super familiar with them.
Well, in the 12th century, there was an Irish archbishop named, he became St. Malachy. And he was summoned by the Pope. This was Pope Innocent II, to come to Rome. This was 1139. The Pope invited him to come to Rome. Well, rather than going by sea, he went by land. He went across the European continent to Italy and ended up in Vatican City. But when he was going across Europe in the 12th century, he just noticed squalor, suffering, starvation, just everything was so terrible, all the way until he got to Vatican City. When he got to Vatican City, there was regalia, pomp, ceremony, opulence, and it bothered him a lot. And so he gave his report on the state of the church in Ireland, and he was leaving Rome, and he had a vision. And in this vision, he saw 112 popes, beginning at that point with Pope Celestine II, I think it was. And he began and had these visions of there would be 112 popes, and the 112th pope would be the last pope. Now, this there was a Benedictine monk named Arnold Wines in the 16th century that discovered this in the Vatican archives, all these prophecies that St. Malachi had made, and he published them in the 16th century. So this is something, it's extra biblical. So anytime something's extra biblical, we don't put the same authority in it
Right.
that we do something that's in the Bible. So it's just kind of a wait and see thing. But the interesting thing is, Dan, this is 900 years. 900, and the popes have known about this since it was published in the 16th century. The popes said, "Well, I don't want to be the last one," and so they've just been kind of counting the popes to see which one is which. Now, I believe we're living in the end times, and I tell people, based on reality and what's happening in the world right now, I don't think we're living in the end times. I think we're living at the end of the end times. I think you can measure that in a lot of ways. Well, so interestingly, our Pope Francis, is number 112. In the 12th century, an Irish archbishop said there's going to be 112 popes, and the last one, and I'm going to read you here in just a minute. Now, so when he received this vision, every pope, 112 popes, he had just a little Latin phrase, like a little sentence that he would say about that pope, describing that particular pope. And so some people have said, "Oh, this is not true. This is not accurate, this prophecy of the popes and all that kind of stuff." Well, let me read you something. This was something he said about Pope Benedict XV. And Pope Benedict XV was from 1914 to 1922. He was the Pope. And so St. Malachi just had this little cryptic 2 or 3 words or a sentence about each one of these popes. So Pope Benedict XV, World War I, St. Malachi said of him in the 12th century, "Religion depopulated." There's many other examples of accuracies in what he said about people. So religion depopulated, okay, 1914 to 1918, 1914, 1922. In those years, when Pope Benedict XV was the Pope, the Russian Orthodox Church lost 200 million members because of the Bolshevik Revolution and because of World War I. The Catholic Church also lost vast numbers of membership because of the World War I and other reasons. And so very, very accurate description of Pope Benedict XV. Okay, so now we get to the end. Pope Francis is 88 years old. He was just in the hospital. I had a lot of people asking me, writing in and asking me, what happens if he dies? And my answer was, the prophecy of the popes dies when he dies. Because he's number 112. If number 113 shows up, it just shoots the whole thing to pieces. Well, Pope Francis was severely ill. I read an article this morning that said they were ready to take him off life support and let him die. Twice he was on the verge of death. Well, now he's out of the hospital. And he's 88 years old. Well, so here's what St. Malachi wrote of the 112th Pope, and he called him Peter the Roman. That's interesting, because St. Francis gets his name from St. Francis of Assisi. St. Francis of Assisi's real name was Peter, and he was Roman. And so here's what St. Malachi wrote of the last Pope. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. And so, according to St. Malachi, the last Pope will pasture Roman Catholic Church, the church, through many tribulations. The city of 7 hills, which is Rome, will be destroyed. Of course, that's described in Revelation 17 and 18 when Babylon is judged. And the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. So this may not be true. The prophecy of the popes, again, is extra biblical, so I don't hang my hat on anything that's extra biblical. But how interesting it is that we are now seeing the things that we're seeing in the world. Israel in the center of the news every single day. Anti-Semitism off the charts. I saw an article today about Australia and the incredible anti-Semitism in Australia, Europe, the United States, college campuses. Again, this is what the Bible said would happen at the end. So now we have the 112th Pope just happens to show up when all these prophecies are taking place. So here's the interesting thing again. If the prophecy of the popes is true, now there's a book called Petrus Romanus that was written by my late friend, Dr. Tom Horn, also Chris Putnam, and they believed that he was the 112th pope. So this is a very well documented book. So if he is the last pope, he's 88 years old. And what it means to me is Jesus has to be coming pretty soon, because if he is going to be the pope during the tribulation is 7 years long, he'll be 95 years old. If the tribulation started this afternoon, he'll be 95 years old when the tribulation's over. And he is not in good health if you saw pictures of him. Well, here's another interesting thing to me, Dan. When he gets out of the hospital, after spending, a month or longer in the hospital, the first thing he did was rebuke Israel. This very interesting thing. He makes a public appearance, and here's what he said. He's saddened by the resumption of heavy Israel bombing in Gaza. He said, I call for an immediate halt to the weapons and the courage to resume dialogue so that all hostages may be released and a final ceasefire released upon it wrote. In the Gaza Strip, the humanitarian situation is again very serious and requires urgent commitment from the conflicting parties in the international community. Well, Israel, they still have 59 hostages. Only 24 of those hostages are alive. And Israel is prosecuting a war, and they're dramatically ramping up their efforts. They're putting 5 divisions in Gaza right now. And the report is they're ready to destroy Hamas if Hamas doesn't release their hostages. And so the Pope gets out of the hospital, and the first thing he does is start, talking bad about Israel, not Hamas, not condemning Hamas. And he's saying we need to get the hostages out. There's a 0% chance that Hamas will do anything without force. Their dialogue will never solve this problem because they're there to destroy Israel, and that's the only reason they're there. And so the prophecy of the popes has been in distribution for hundreds of years. It's been well known for hundreds of years. Pope Benedict resigned. You remember the Pope before Pope Francis. My friend Tom Horn predicted that publicly on media a year before it happened. And he said, based on different things, he said Benedict is going to resign. He did resign, just as Tom Horn had predicted. And now, for the first time in 600 years, a pope had not resigned in 600 years. Pope Benedict resigns, Pope Francis steps in, and now he's number 112. And he's controversial. He's very controversial. And related to Israel, he's controversial. So I'm just looking and saying, if an 88-year-old man is the last pope and he's in ill health, the clock is ticking really hard. And I never set dates. I just think it's very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And like you said, we can be watching for that, and we can see, because like you said, it sure looks like, the Pope has been in rough health here for the past several weeks. So I'm obviously hoping he comes through that, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And I know you just mentioned Gaza here and the things going on there. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit now that we have that on the radar. And you mentioned Gaza, and talk about what's going on now. One of the interesting things that I saw happen is that the Gazans now are protesting against Hamas. And this is something that we just hadn't seen previously. And the media, of course, doesn't, they're breathless over a bunch of people protesting on college campuses. And that's front and center news over and over and over again. And so to leave the impression that everybody's against Israel, and then now you have Gazans in Gaza, which is really risky for them. They are risking their own lives there. Let's be honest about that. And they're out there protesting, and I have seen some reporting on it, but it's not the same sort of breathless reporting you see when it's in reverse. What's your reaction to what we're seeing in Gaza today?
Egypt is threatening Hamas. Egypt is under the gun because they have the Sinai Peninsula just adjacent to the Gaza Strip. And there was an unconfirmed report today that they're preparing to allow 500,000 Gazans to leave Gaza Strip and go into the Sinai Peninsula. And I don't know if that would be their final destination or if they would be, allowed to, go to other places after they're vetted. The people of Gaza are desperate. And they're desperate because now they've shut off the humanitarian aid again. All these trucks that were able to come in there and give them relief, they're shut off again. These people are living in a living hell. And they're being encouraged by Egypt right now, and the rhetoric between Hamas and Egypt maybe allowing them to get out. That gives them some courage. They're also being encouraged by the fact, or I don't know if it's encouraging, Israel has got them surrounded. Israel's got the corridor between the fence on the south with Egypt. They've taken that back over, and also in the north, they've just sandwiched them in, and they're prepared to destroy Hamas. And so the Gazan people are just absolutely desperate people, and I don't know. I know that they're complicit in the sense that, many of the Gazan people have been hosting the hostages in their homes. The hostages have said this. Many of the Gazan people have trained their children to hate Israel, kill the Jews, so on and so forth. I saw 45 minutes of the raw footage of October 7th. And as the bodies of dead Israelis are being dragged through the streets of Gaza City, the Gazans were celebrating that and everything. So, but I hope that there is an opportunity for them to get out of the Gaza Strip. That the only resolution to this, Dan, is the death of every Hamas terrorist. The demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and give the innocent Gazan people or the peaceful Gazan people an opportunity to have a normal life after this. And so my take on this right now is Israel is not going to pull back in any way. They're not going to talk. They know that Hamas will not change through any rhetoric. They're ready to go to war. They're ready to stay at war with Hamas and kill them. Egypt does not want to be under the gun. President Trump has made it very uncomfortable for Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, because he's just basically saying to them, why don't you step up and do something? And, we could open the gate tomorrow, let the innocent people out, destroy Hamas, and redevelop this area. And that put all of these Mideast countries in an uncomfortable position, because they don't want the Palestinians, because they're trouble. The Gazans, they're everywhere they go. They cause the same trouble, and they were expelled from Egypt because they came from the Muslim Brotherhood, and they cause all kinds of problems there. So it is such a difficult situation. But what President Trump did was he just basically said, hey, we're going to turn it into a resort. We're going to destroy Hamas, turn it into a resort. And that just changed the rhetoric. And now Israel and the United States, toe to toe, are saying, we're going to destroy Hamas. There's no other way to say it. We're going to destroy Hamas. Now, you can give us back our hostages right now and make this easier, or you can keep this up. But I just see this as being the end of Hamas. And the Mideastern countries, I don't know what they're going to end up doing, but for the sake of the Palestinian people and the Gazan residents, I do hope that they open that Egyptian border and let some people go, because it also makes it easier to find the Hamas terrorists and kill them.
Yeah, and you can really see in the video we were just seeing a minute ago of the protesters out there, and we were talking about how risky that is for those people. And you can't help but think that maybe they're realizing, oh no, the ones who are actually not terrorists, right, and not sympathetic to Hamas, they're saying, well, wait a minute, yeah, maybe this is risky for me here, but Israel is coming in here and they're not messing around anymore. Not that they were in the early part of this, but, with the ceasefire and everything else, and they're just saying enough is enough. And you just, the two-state solution thing, I heard there's some hearings this week, and I heard a lot of talk about this again. And the problem with a two-state solution is, everyone's critical here on the left. They're critical of people who are against the two-state solution. And it's like, well, guess what? I got news for you. Who else is against a two-state solution? That's Hamas. They don't want a two-state solution. They don't want Israel to exist. They want to wipe them off the face of the earth, as does Iran. So that is why a two-state solution is just never going to work. But I saw people in the chat, by the way, some of you maybe who are just joining late and wondering about, because the title is the quantum apocalypse and the Antichrist. We covered that at the beginning. So once we wrap up here, if you missed that and you're interested in that, go ahead and check out back at the beginning of the conversation here. We covered a lot of ground. on our discussion this week. And as always, Pastor Evans, appreciate you stopping by here to break down the news of the day from this prophetic lens, as you guys always do at endtimes.com. And there's never a shortage of, just crazy things happening around the globe. So there's always going to be stuff to talk about, and I appreciate your perspective on it.
Well, Dan, thank you very much. It's always a joy to be with you. But I'm hoping for some boring weeks to come up. But unfortunately, it's just there's always something going on.
Yeah, I was just reading in our daily devotional, our family, we were reading about Gideon, and and you read about the and I'm forgetting the number of years of rest they had, but it was you read about that whenever somebody follows God and they're faithful. There's that like period of rest after, right? Like it would be nice. Let's get the period of rest. And maybe we had it in America and we were kind of coming off of it after a while, but I'd like another one. I'd like another period of rest if I had my preference.
Well, the good news is the millennium is going to come here pretty soon. That's going to be 1,000 years of rest. That's really good news. Jesus will be the king of the earth. So maybe we have to wait till then, but maybe it'll be very soon.
There you go. Pastor Jimmy Evans from endtimes.com. Appreciate your perspective on this as always. And we'll see you again next week.
Enjoy it, Dan. God bless you.
All right, and thank everybody else here for joining in the chat. Again, if you missed that conversation there at the beginning of the quantum, really interesting stuff, talking about AI and how that pertains to the prophetic lens and our walks as Christians, and a good conversation there. So again, God bless. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to CBNnews.com. We'll see you next time.